remember vividly the day we went to his very religious parents to tell them that we were in love and that we were going to live together and then get married when we were done school. And they were very calm, and they said, if you know you're going to get married, why don't you do that before you live together? So we went back and had a chat. I was 18, he was 21. And we decided, yeah, we're sure about this. So we went to my parents, and the conversation was quite different because we said, we're in love, and we're going to get married. And my mother did not miss a beat in saying, what, are you pregnant? So we lived a wonderful life for a decade. Double income, no kids. We owned a house, there were 2 cars in the garage, our careers were well underway. And then came the point when my mother decided it was her time to be a grandmother. And she asked us if we didn't know how to do it. So kids, they're our purpose for life, right? They're our legacy. So we decided that we would have 2 kids, not let them outnumber us. And suddenly, all the effort we had made to get out from someone else's, authority was now undone because their toys pushed our possessions aside. Their schedule dictated our movements. Their food preferences set the menu. It was like indentured servitude. You know what I'm talking about, right? As I said, we had a daughter and a son. Our son had some issues with frustration when he was a toddler. I love him very much. But in preschool, he didn't have the language to say, excuse me, I was playing with that truck. Could you please return it to me? Instead, he would bite people. Now, if he bit a friend's child, we just settled the kids down and laughed it off, and life went on. But one day he bit Mason, whose mother was a nurse and knew well what the toxic environment of the human mouth was like. And she had to rush her little darling off to get life-saving injections. I had to go to the liquor store and buy a very expensive bottle of wine so that the story in our small community would be kind and gentle. I got a lot of advice about what to do. Some people said, ignore it, he'll grow out of it. Others said, bite him back. I mean, seriously, who bites a toddler? Okay, I did. We were out for a recreational outing, and he didn't want to leave. So as I was forcing him into his car seat and buckling him down, he bit me on the forearm. So I bit him back. Now, not out of anger, I was very calm. I had thought this through. I made eye contact with him, and I said, you don't bite people, it hurts, like this. And then I took his perfect little chubby arm, and I bit it. It left teeth marks. It wasn't a magic cure. Eventually, his language increased, and with coaching, he grew out of it. He's 31 now, and he hardly ever bites people anymore. But it made me revisit the question of what and who I want to be. The next phase of life, the children got out of the house. We had them fully educated. They found loving partners, had homes of their own, no plans to come back. But before we could enjoy that empty nest phase, I was drawn into elder care, which we've heard about tonight. So elder care involved a whole bunch of new roles that were not on my what do I want to do with my life list. Chauffeur to medical appointments, a social companion, tech support, personal care worker, errands. I was called to my parents' house one day to help my mother wrap and mail a parcel. She had very arthritic fingers that were quite twisted, and she couldn't find the address that she needed for this parcel. So when I arrived, She pulled a toothpaste box out of the refrigerator. I was confused. She explained to me that she had bought bacon on sale and was dismayed to see that it was all fat, totally unedible. So she wanted to send it back to the company. So she had jammed the raw bacon into the toothpaste box. Would I now wrap it and mail it for her? This was at the time of the anthrax mail terrorism. So I explained to my mother that mailing raw meat is not a good plan. It would become very toxic and be putting some unsuspecting customer service person at risk, not to mention the mail carrier. So I pulled the bacon out of the box, we put it on a plate. It held its rectangular form for a minute until it warmed up and turned into a pile of goo. We took a digital picture of it, and I coached her through writing a letter of complaint as I would one of my English students. We opened with a kind word about the company. We explained in a very neutral manner what the problem was, and we respectfully asked for a refund. When she signed it, she put in a PS. I wanted to mail it back to you, but my daughter wouldn't let me. From elder care and support worker, I was pulled into hospice work, which was a very difficult time. But I had the honor of sitting with both my parents as they took their last breaths. I feel that I served them to the best of my ability, and I'm honored to have gone on that journey with them. After that, I could look to my own life for a moment. I had put in a long career in the educational field, and it was time for me to retire, which is frightening when you've spent the majority of your adult life focused on what do you want to be in terms of employment and income. The schedule of that job and the colleagues that are your social network, losing that and the potential void that's out there is frightening. So I retired in June of 2018. And I was advised that in September I should go on a trip so I wouldn't feel bad about not going back to school. So I did. And when I got back from the trip, my vice principal phoned and begged me to come back to work. They needed me desperately. Yeah, it's nice to be needed. It was just for the morning. It was 2 courses that I knew very well, so I said yes. The grade 12 English class was no problem. They knew me. They hadn't noticed I was gone. But the grade 9s went, who's the old lady at the front of the room? Now, I remember one day teaching them Romeo and Juliet, which usually is an easy sell to 14-year-olds. It's full of sex and violence and new profanity and rebellion against parents. And this one young lady, you know, the one with the Groucho Marx eyebrows and the lashes that can fan the room? That one was on her phone. So I said to her, could you just put that aside until the lesson is done? And she said, just a minute. She waved her little acrylic nailed finger at me. And at that moment, I thought to myself, this is not what I want to be anymore. So I finished that teaching stint in January of this year, and I'm on retirement 2.0, which I am determined to make work. So I looked around to try and figure out what I could do to bring energy and connection into my life. I had friends who, my husband, a retired teacher, took up watercolor painting. I have another friend who's a retired geography professor who travels the world taking nature photos. I've got other friends who work on environmental projects, make jewelry, have discovered community theater. They all have found something they're passionate about that gets them out of bed and into the community. I decided that I like to tell stories. Yeah, you might have noticed that. Guelph, where I'm from, has a fantastic writing community, spoken word opportunities, Toastmasters clubs, lots of MoMondays, Lots of opportunities to connect with other people who enjoy the art of storytelling, which is an ancient art and a wonderful form of self-expression. So I'm here tonight to tell to you that you still have time to reinvent yourself, listen for that voice inside, and figure out what you want to be when you grow up.